about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So is it a summer cold or is it COVID? Many of you are coughing, headache, really bad sore throat, nasal congestion that just doesn't stop, chest pain, difficulty breathing, pink eye. We are seeing huge spikes in cases of COVID. Emergency room admissions and deaths have actually gone up considerably. Nowhere near, thank God, what we've seen previously, but still, the numbers have gone up. According to the CDC, there has been a 0.8% increase in test positivity, which, again, these COVID tests, especially the at-home tests, I think are missing a lot of cases. But there has been a 23.3% rise in emergency department visits. In terms of hospitalizations, there has been a 13.3% jump. Now, in the last week, we have had a drop in deaths, 25% from the prior week. So that's a good sign that we've had deaths drop, but we still have deaths from COVID. And so, many of you have kind of asked, where are we with this? What do we have to do vaccines anymore? Do we have to take it seriously anymore? Well, okay. For me, any sort of virus that possibly came from a lab, came from a country that doesn't seem to be our best friend. Okay, we always take that stuff seriously. When people ask, why did I get the COVID vaccine? Well, because I saw what was going on in the hospitals. I saw kids dying of COVID myocarditis, and I trusted Pfizer over China. And I am glad I got my original vaccines. I'm not going to get another one. Not for any time soon. The booster really messed me up. Why did I get the booster? Because I promised you all I would. I said, look, I'm not going to get a booster until they get a new one for a new strain. And then I will let you see what it did to me. So you guys can make, a partially informed decision. But I'm not going to do it again. That was not fun. My arms swelled, my breast swelled, underarms swelled, had chest pain for a month, had to put off my mammograms. But I have to tell you guys, when I get COVID, it's not fun. I don't like getting COVID. So I don't want to get COVID. So when I got the vaccine, I didn't get COVID. It was kind of nice. That's what I noticed. But I still got COVID despite the vaccine later on, following season. Not fun at all. So, would I get another one in the future? I'm not going to say never. But as long as COVID becomes more mild. But it hasn't been that mild lately. It has been causing an increase in hospitalizations. So why? What's going on? Well, we should be having an element of immunity from prior strains. But what's happening, because for those of us that are still alive, and I'm not talking 3-year-old children, I'm talking those of us who lived through the pandemic, we have some immunity. But COVID, unfortunately, is kind of like seasonal flu, and that just because you had the flu in 2014 doesn't mean you're going to be protected now. It changes too much. And also, that's another reason why it's not like the MMR or the polio vaccine where you're one and done. Figuratively speaking, you need a series, okay? Same thing with that. Just because you got the COVID vaccine doesn't mean you're good. Those of you that got the shingles vaccine series, you feel good. Polio vaccine, you feel good. You feel covered. But no, COVID, that doesn't do that. And so, yes, COVID is still with us. And my job, because of the BS that you all went through with the government and the back and forth with the masks and the mandates and the vaccines, my job is to tell you like it is. I know there's some people out there that want me to say that COVID is fake. It's not fake. It's real. People want me to say that the vaccines had little tracking devices in them. And I don't believe that, not with the science. I understand the distrust. I don't think the distrust is that ill-founded. I understand why people distrust the government. But I don't particularly think the shots had nano trackers. But when I see people who are short of breath and their oxygen dropping, we had a child yesterday whose oxygen was down into the 80s. All right. It sounded like COVID symptoms. I told them, you got to take him to the hospital. We have to rule that out. Because sometimes the virus can cause unpredictable things. And, what everybody's forgetting. I know everybody wants to say we're done with COVID. We're done with COVID. What you guys are forgetting is nobody has still held China or the Wuhan Institute lab accountable. It has been, as of next month, it's going to be 5 years from the leak. I think the leak happened in August of 2019. And if nobody has taken responsibility and nobody has educated us Americans on, well, this is how it happened, is it still happening? Are other labs doing the same protocols? And I'm not saying it was maliciously leaked. That could have happened too. Somebody could be still maliciously leaking. But if this was an accident, if we are going to be under the impression of, okay, this was an accident, China has leaked viruses before, especially SARS. This is their third time. Now it happens. Well, where's the past 5 years? What have we done to stop more leaks? And another question that nobody has answered, which I have continued to ask, is was it that one little baby teeny weeny COVID strain that got leaked, or did a whole slew of crap get leaked? That's what I'd like to know. 1-877-Doc-Dali.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. And Daniel, our producer today. All right. So on Twitter or X, President Biden showed the world the letter that he wrote Democrats. Now, it is his verified Twitter account or X account. Wasn't on letterhead. It looked like a personal letterhead. It was a very well-constructed letter. I don't know if he wrote it or his people wrote it, but this is what he published. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's pretty lengthy. But there's been a lot of discussion on if it's fake, if it's not. But it's very telling. And it kind of shows that the Democrats are in trouble if they don't make a decision and make a decision soon. Now, as I've said before, you can't just replace Biden that easily. You need the doctor saying that he isn't of sound mind or he isn't healthy. To invoke the 25th Amendment, there has to be documentation and objective findings. You know, I think we have enough of them on video, but with the White House calling them cheap fakes, just, again, you can very easily solve this by President go out there, do a impromptu press conference. They've been asking for you to come out there. I mean, Trump was out there all the time, and I think he did that because people tried to say that he had, you know, mental issues and whatever, and so, you know, he's like, look, and then that's why he eventually made his own social media so nobody could change and alter his sound bites, etc. It's just a shame our politicians have to even go through that. But Biden could put this all to rest. Just go out there and do the impromptu. Just ask questions on the fly. Again, if your policies are strong, if you love what you've done with this country, it should be very, very simple. And if you're cognitively there, you should be able to answer questions. Oh, but he seems very timid. Now, if you don't want to face a press conference, how are you going to face world leaders? How are you going to face Putin? How are you going to face Xi Jinping? You know, so Kim Jong-un. So that's, now, don't be afraid of a press corps. Just get out there. It's not a big deal. But this letter was, very finely crafted. And he is not liking the idea, obviously, of them wanting to challenge that. He said, we had a Democratic nomination process. The voters have spoken clearly and decisively. I received over 14 million votes, 87% of the votes cast across the entire nominating process. I have nearly 3,900 delegates, making me the presumptive nominee of his party by a wide margin. Now, he's right on that. But then again, the voters were not given Michelle Obama. They were not given Gavin Newsom as a choice. They were not. Now, they could have done write-in candidates, but the Democratic Party, again, there was this kind of like, nope, we're not going there. Right now, this is your candidate. And so he did technically. I mean, for the Democratic convention to sidestep that, that's an issue. Also, people think, well, let's just put Gavin Newsom in. The Democrats are not going to put another white man in when Kamala Harris is their vice president. And they're going to sidestep. If Biden leaves, vice president gets elevated. Now, we understand she's not very popular, but that's how the process would go. Not to mention she has access to the funding and the campaign because the campaign was for Biden, Kamala. That's kind of one of the little protections and checks and balances. So the person that's been with them for 4 years then has access. And I told you, my prediction is Biden is not going to leave with people, calling him names and saying all he does is eat ice cream and Jell-O and those are his biggest decisions. He's going to leave on a high note. And so for him to leave on a Democratic high note, he's going to want to get credit for giving us the first female president on his own. Like, so shall it be written, so shall it be done. So I think he is going to leave and elevate her. But for now, in this letter, he says he's not going anywhere. And, he says this was a process open to anyone who wanted to run. Only 3 people chose to challenge me. One fared so badly that he left the primaries to run as an independent. Another attacked me for being too old and was soundly defeated. The voters of the Democratic Party have voted. They have chosen me to be the nominee of the party. And so, he will not step down, as he's saying. He says he took on Big Pharma with the lowering the insulin price to $35 a month, but Trump did that. See, if I was Biden's PR person, he needs to kind of reword that because Trump lowered insulin and then Biden had reversed that when he came into office. He re-brought it back, but you got to stick to the facts right now. I mean, Big Pharma, you're also going against Big Pharma when you mandated the vaccine from Big Pharma. He has to, whoever his PR person is, they need to kind of reword his Big Pharma messaging is all off. And that's, you gotta, don't reiterate what Trump did. And then stop what Trump did and then bring it back. Just like with the jobs. We brought back jobs. Well, when you kick people off, and it wasn't necessarily him, but when his states made people lock down and lose their jobs, then bringing them back onto the ship after you throw them off the ship, how much credit do you get? But he says that, again, he wants to beat Trump and the MAGA Republicans, and he's, unity. He says also, which is fascinating, that that MAGA Republicans are siding with the wealthy and the big corporations. So one move that I urge the Democrats to do if they don't want to look like they're siding with the wealthy is stop this flippin' push for everybody to have an electric vehicle. Okay, that's right now a rich man's car. Wealthy people have electric vehicles because if they can, because they have a house, they have a garage, they could plug in their car. You're kind of pushing states to mandate no more new cars with zero emission, or no more cars without zero emissions, and you're forgetting about everybody who lives in an apartment or shared housing. I'd change that wording, okay, because that helps. A lot of wealthy people can have one, but not those people who are in apartments. That's actually a very big sore spot for the middle class and for lower income individuals. So I would really kind of reword that. But, he says there's 42 days to the Democratic National Convention, 119 days to the general election, and their job is to beat Donald Trump. They say we have one job, is to beat Donald Trump. Wrong messaging. Your one job is to unite America. Your one job is to keep America safe. And maybe you don't have one job. Your job is to have America the most vibrant, effective place where people can be safe. Students can excel in school. People have freedom of speech. You're protecting the Constitution. Excuse me, I got the bad hiccups. I got hiccups. I'm sorry, guys. And so saying your one job is to beat Trump, wrong messaging. Okay, most of your Democratic voters, just like most of your Republican voters, they don't give a crap about egos. All right? They want their kids to beat China in school and education. They want their kids excelling. They want college affordable. They want their kids to have a job. They don't want their kids canceled. They don't want there to be crime. They don't want their kids shot. They don't want government getting involved in personal decisions. I also think the Democrats are a little bit mixed on the messaging because the Roe v. Wade overturn is when the feds say we can't get involved. The government is not supposed to get involved with a woman's choice or the death of a fetus. Government doesn't get involved with that. And as a physician, I'm like, it should be between the doctor and the patient. But they say that Republicans want government involved. Remember, with Roe v. Wade, it was the feds saying, no, we're not, feds out. And that's the start of government getting out. It was a mess with states arguing over when they could do an abortion, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 24 weeks during Roe v. Wade. The overturn of Roe v. Wade didn't clarify that, didn't help, because still the states are arguing over that. But there has always been a struggle. And public officials, the feds say we're out, go to the states. The states now have to say we're out. It's between a patient and their doctor. Maybe that'll eventually get government out of that. And again, I think we do need to help people not have unwanted pregnancies so they don't have to go through the trauma of terminating a pregnancy. 1 million terminations a year is a lot for a country who has Obamacare and free birth control. And so something's going wrong. Get the doctors back involved. Get the doctors and the medical professionals back involved. Get the politicians out of it. So we'll see what happens. But Biden can solve all questions. Just do a press conference, impromptu, and just express the way you express things in this letter. 1-877-DOC-DOLLAR. Dr. Daliah. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So 2 of my favorite shows recently are House of the Dragon, which is the prequel to Game of Thrones. They're doing really, really good. And The Boys. The Boys has been a show I've really, really liked, except this season, I don't know. I almost stopped watching it. It was kind of hard to watch. And, I'm not just a physician. I, have a lot of hats and, storytelling, PR, marketing, book writing. And so, when I see a movie or I see a TV series that has potential, an amazing potential, and then they blow it, I take that to heart. That's why I told you guys Barbie, they lost a huge opportunity on that. Barbie could have been so cool. They could have made her this, have all these, fun adventures and some maybe superhero dumb and all that. And instead it was a lot of crying and anti-man stuff. And I'm like, you guys, you had a winning, this could have been so good. And I know they made money, but the audience was crickets. Nobody was laughing at the jokes. I laughed at a couple of the jokes, but they could have taken it in another direction. And I'm like, oh, come on, people. And maybe they will one day. The Boys was a very interesting concept in that you have these superheroes who are jerks, and how they became superheroes and the chemistry behind it, and then the corporation. And so you get some corporate greed. You get how, superheroes, not only do they become narcissistic, but they can also become evil and where they lose their path and how they're, but it's taken a turn where it has to be, and I understand a lot of Hollywood, they like to bag on Trump. But now this season is all about how the bad guy, the very disgusting, evil bad guy, is a Trump lookalike. Anybody who is pro-America, wears the flag, is a part of his team. And there are a lot of, shall we say, sexual fetishes that the story seems to concentrate on. Almost every episode has some very, very highly sexual content. Okay, I can't speak a lot about it on the show, but one fetish involved somebody naked on a chocolate cake passing gas. Now, it's taken from the story. You had a great story, you had a great start, you had somebody going to power, and then they decide to alienate audiences with very graphic sex scenes and these political I mean, they even brought up vaccines. I mean, it's almost like they just want to say, look, we're anti-Republican, and so this is what our show is about. And it's getting horrible reviews. People are, and I'm like, God, can the boys go back to what they were doing? It was such a good show. And we need good shows. We need good shows. Okay, we have so much crap out there, and the boys fell victim to it. And they're, it's okay. I get that every now and then there's going to be a sex scene. That House of the Dragon actually had a sex scene that drew some criticism because it was very graphic. But Game of Thrones had some, incestual sex scenes and things like that. And so I get they want to do the shock factor, but every episode. And for a good part of the episode. So, the boys, I hope they get back into track of it, but I think they've already gone kind of too far, and they've alienated half of their audience. And so I don't know if they'll be able to come back from it. But, the stars are good. Just get back to the story. We don't need to see somebody farting in a chocolate cake. I don't get that. Now, House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon takes place, I think, a couple centuries before Game of Thrones. And I was not planning on liking it. You have a good series, just like Lord of the Rings. You got to be really, really careful starting to mess with that and trying to piggyback onto, its quan or its popularity. But Lord of the Rings didn't do bad with The Hobbit. Not as good as Lord of the Rings trilogy, but, The Hobbit did okay. But then their TV show left a lot to be desired. So here we are with House of the Dragon. And it was, you had a lot of haters. They were like, don't even mess with it. Hey, it is sacrilegious to go against Game of Thrones. But there was a pre-story. There's a pre-story to the dragons. There's a pre-story to Daenerys, who later became Khaleesi Targaryen. So the pre-story has developed very nicely. And I was wondering, I was talking to my husband about why these shows are doing so well and people can't wait for Sunday night. And they can't, it's because when it has a little of everything, when it has war, when it has mystical, when it has dragons, when it has love, and when it tries, and I'm sure there's some political undertones, but when it tries hard to give you that escape from everyday politics, from everyday, we don't need messaging. I understand Hollywood execs are like, well, we got to please everybody so we don't get canceled, so throw in this messaging. All right, about the border, about abortion, about vaccines, and that's what they did to boys. It looks like they took every single thing, politically that happened over the past few years and threw it into the season. But House of the Dragon, you could actually watch it and not feel like you're watching the news. It's kind of nice. And that's what people want. And I don't understand why Hollywood doesn't look at that. One of the reasons why comedians have been so popular and how comedians have gone as far as they've done in terms of popularity, with them being politically incorrect and saying some of the things that you would think they would get canceled, is because they make fun of what's going on in the world. And they say what needs to be said that people don't say. That's why Trump became so popular, because he said things that other politicians wouldn't. People were thinking it, and he said it. And so, you got to kind of read the room. And so, comedians have been canceled. Well, you said this, you said that. And I've seen comedians go too far. Yeah, we don't want racism and anti-Semitism, misogyny or whatever. But when you make a joke about, so it's like In-N-Out. In-N-Out is a cartoon that has been doing really, really well in the movie theaters. And why has In-N-Out done well? Because what they do is they go into the mind of the woman and then the mind of the man. And you see the little characters. And the mind of the man is funny. Right, they're with their, where the woman's, they're it's in disalignment with the line of with the thinking of the woman, and somebody could say, oh, the stereotypes, the this, but it's funny, and In-N-Out apparently still in In-N-Out 2 has perpetuated some of those kind of like, apparently I think the daughter went to camp. I haven't seen the movie yet, but the daughter goes to camp and she was there for a while. And the mom's like, how was it? And she goes, that fine. And in the women's mind, they're like, that's it? What? That's it? What? Yeah. Whereas in the men's mind, it was like, all right, well, I'm satisfied. And sometimes there are certain trends that you can make. It doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's anti-woman. But people like that, they sometimes want to make fun of that. Can we make fun of a soy burger? Can we make fun of, I don't know. We're having horrible flooding and power outages in Houston. And I'm sure a comedian's going to make a joke about electric vehicle. Sometimes adding some levity to a situation, can help people cope. It doesn't mean they have to change their political party. It doesn't mean they have to turn into a person that they're not. But, for me personally, I like no politics in my sports. I like no politics in my entertainment because they don't have to. They have another job to do. The NFL, they have to show a game. They have to play a game, keep the players safe, but play a damn good game. They don't have to, on top of it, go, okay, wait, we also have to check these other boxes too. I mean, same thing with television. Same thing with medicine. We doctors have a job to do. We don't have to please the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. Our job is to the patient and to the ethics of medicine. Leave politics out. 1-877 Dr. Daliah.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So for those of you who take these weight loss drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, Mounjaro, make sure you still get your eyes examined. These medications were, Ozempic and Mounjaro were originally for people with diabetes. And those individuals with diabetes who are requiring blood sugar management have regular eye visits. We are now being told that Ozempic and Wegovy, who makes semaglutide, Some of those patients may be at increased risk for a condition that causes sudden vision loss, as the medicines could cause a condition that affects the optic nerve. Now, I'm not saying everybody who takes it could go blind, but this is something that you need to be aware of, and it was published, I think, in JAMA Ophthalmology. So we're going to talk about that study right now. So in JAMA Ophthalmology, a study was published, I think this was last week, and they said more studies are needed, but they're talking about non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy. Okay? Enough said? Okay, let's move on. No, I'll talk about it, okay? Or NAION, non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy. It affects the optic nerve, which is the bundle of fibers that connect the back of the eye and carries the signals. When the light comes through, hits the retina, you got your cones, you got your rods. That has to be transmitted to the brain for you to understand what you're seeing. And the optic nerve, unfortunately, is a very delicate, vulnerable neurological bundle of fibers. And they say people who get this lose blood flow to the optic nerve. It's like a stroke to the optic nerve. Now, it is the second most common optic nerve disease in the United States. 10 out of every 100,000 people. Still rare, but more common than others. But it's one of the most common causes of sudden blindness. Condition's permanent, since we don't have very active treatments. Now, this study was based on analysis of medical records spanning 6 years, looking at 16,800 patients. They said 1,700 had diabetes, were either overweight or had obesity, and they looked at outcomes after 3 years in those who were prescribed semaglutide and those who weren't. Now, semaglutide is the active ingredient in Wegovy and Ozempic. They said 200 of the diabetic patients were prescribed semaglutide. 17 of them went on to develop this, which is a rate four times higher than those not on the drug. For the obesity group, so non-diabetic group, because I know people say, well, Daliah, diabetes is probably causing that. For the obesity group, 361 people were prescribed the semaglutide. 20 people developed the condition, equating to a 7 times higher rate. So when you look at the article, it's in the JAMA Ophthalmology. They conclude that the findings suggest a potential risk of this neuropathy associated with prescriptions for semaglutide. However, future study is required to assess causality. The study's findings suggest an association, though, between the medication. It was observational, but we need a study to assess causality. So what they're basically saying is when you looked at associational is, all right, so we have a bunch of these people, let's say drinking fruit juice and also having celery. I'm looking at these people and, whoa, it looks like they also have diabetes. So maybe there's an association with it. A causality is, okay, what we're going to do is you don't have diabetes now. We're going to feed you celery, and we're going to feed you fruit juice, and we're going to see if you develop it. That's more of a causality. And there's a bunch of different studies, and there's retrospective and longitudinal, but when you look and go, these people have eye issues. What are they on? Are they on Viagra? Did they take a lot of antibiotics? So they really have to break this down, but it is an interesting finding in terms of people who are taking this medicine for obesity. Could it affect the eyes? And I told you guys this. I think these medications can be a huge tool in the fight to obesity, but we jumped on the bandwagon a little too soon. They need to be studied. We need to understand what these medications do in non-diabetics. We also need to understand what happens if you don't get your medicine and you start to rebound. Everybody's talking about, look at the loss of weight. We lower our cancer risk. We lower our heart disease risk. We lower our blood pressure. Weight loss can be pretty effective in that. But what happens with the rebound? When you don't get your medicine, when you can't afford it, when your insurance company this December says, sorry, it's too much. $1,600 a month, we can't. You're not paying us premiums high enough for us to cover that. We're not paying for the drug, and you don't get the drug anymore. Now what? does your weight rebound? And does that increase in rebound now increase your risk of cancer? So we're going to have to be careful of some of these studies. Say those people who took the medication are at higher risk for things. The big question is it because they went off of it and they rebounded? So we don't have a lot of studies saying that people who are non-diabetic can have easy access to these medications for 20, 30, 40 years. Now, I mean, listen, if somebody told me, Daliah, you could look the way you did in your 20s. Well, I know I didn't look that good then either. Yeah, but in terms of your weight and in terms of your stomach, I'm game. But yeah, I'm middle-aged. I am not going to want to be on that medicine for only 2 years or 5 years. I'm going to want to look that good in my 70s, 80s, 90s, which means I need multiple decade commitments. How do we know? So my recommendation, because a lot of you are on these medications, is get your checkups. If your medical provider says, are you noticing anything different? Be honest. I get it. I've been to the doctor and say, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, all good, I'm good. Let me get out of here. Let me put my clothes back on and let me get out of here. Please let your doctor know the most esoteric, finite, well, I notice I need reading glasses more, or I notice things are a little bit more foggy, or it takes me longer for my eyes to focus in the morning, or I sometimes get a halo, or sometimes I notice that I think my makeup looks good and then I put my glasses on and go, whoa, I don't look like that, or I'm not reading as well, or you have to bring these things up. Your eyes, you only have 2 of them. Right? And if your doctor also wants to know what medications you're on, some of you are very discreet. You're getting your medication from a family member and sneaking it to help you get, because you can't afford it. One of your family members, which by the way, that's insurance fraud. One of your family members has insurance covering it and you don't. So you're sneaking. That's, you got to tell your doctor what you're on. They're not going to call the police if you are, you say you're using a medication. They may not go too deep into how you got it, but they need to know. Just like if you're getting fentanyl off the streets, you got to tell your doctor. They need to know to help you medically. And, people aren't very honest with their physicians anymore. So, with something like this, we have an obesity problem. And one of the reasons why we have an obesity problem is we have a needing to stick something in our mouths, like cigarettes. When we stopped smoking, we gained weight. People would, as soon as they were hungry, grab a cigarette to keep their weight down. Virginia Slims, whatever they used. And that's what the ad showed. You could look skinny and beautiful because you're smoking instead of eating. Well, now that we've realized that smoking can be bad for you, very deadly, and we stopped it, people are going to the eating. And these medications help some people with those cravings. There might be a better way. 1-877-Doc-Daliah, don't go away.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com. where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.